Markets and Morals, with an excursus on capitalism. The question that occasionally comes up is whether libertarianism is just capitalism extended into the arena of ethics and justice. More specifically, whether any criticism of libertarianism also applies to free market economies, supply and demand, and so on. The short answer is no. Sandel argues that both utilitarianism and libertarianism give very similar market-based justifications. Still, while libertarianism can support market-based approaches, libertarianism behaves as if it is just market-based approaches to ethics. Can someone maintain a capitalist economic perspective without being a libertarian? There is a moral theory that was once very popular, which doesn't get much discussion anymore, though you can find it in everything from the stories of Charles Dickens to the musings of some evolutionary sociologists. Around the same time of Bentham, there was a certain Scottish philosopher who was also a friend of David Hume. You remember Hume's guillotine, and was a professor of moral philosophy at the University of Glasgow. This Scottish philosopher wrote what was then a bestseller, A Theory of Moral Sentiments. You may know him better as the author of The Wealth of Nations. Yes, before he was known for his theory of economics, he had already made his mark as an ethicist. What is notable is just how unlike libertarianism Adam Smith's views on ethics were. Like Bentham, Smith was looking for a theory of ethics that was tangible, objective, and empirical. Also, like Bentham, Smith looked to psychology, such as it existed at the time, to provide an answer. Unlike Bentham, or Adam Smith, maintained that ethics flow from the ability to put one's self in the situation of another and feel what the situation would be like for you. When my children were younger, they enjoyed relating all sorts of gory details, usually at dinner, just to make me wince. Beyond that trivial example, we do have a visceral reaction to someone else's emotional state. Moreover, we do tend to aim for our own happiness in such a way that our fellow feelings, that of those around us. Note, Smith is not inclined to identify happiness with pleasure. He is drawing on a much older theory here, which we will get to eventually. Fellow feeling, properly nourished beings, or fellow feelings, properly nourished, brings forth virtues such as generosity, industry, thrift, compassion, and so on. Governments have a role to encourage these virtues. Civic virtues can be mandated in Smith's eyes. Smith was fascinated by the power of free markets to produce wealth and how efficiently it was at distributing it. He saw this as a means that would allow people to act on their moral sentiments. We are likely to be more generous, one might think, if we have more to be generous with. If our happiness is more secure, we are more likely to distribute that happiness more broadly. On the other hand, while capital markets may be very efficient in producing and efficient in distributing goods, Smith was not convinced that by themselves markets would distribute wealth either fairly or freely on their own. Moreover, markets know nothing of human sentiment. By extension, there is no prima facie contradiction to being a utilitarian or a categorical deontologist and a supporter of capitalism, provided that capitalism is conditioned by those ethical systems. It also means that one can be a capitalist and a critic of libertarianism. Now, it may be that Adam Smith was just a product of his time and didn't realize the power of his own theory. So, for Thursday, let us look at the question of whether everything we value as human beings can or should be determined by market forces.